Hi guys, well today's the day I'm going to erect the Naturehike Cloud Up 2 tent. You may have seen the video of me getting the tent last November, that's in November 2020, but then the UK went into lockdown and never got the chance to actually pitch it, go camping. We've come out of a degree of lockdown in April 2021 and can now legally stay away from home, and I'm currently in Shropshire at a campsite, and it's my first camp of since last year, but I do want to try this tent out. Now you might also have seen I used to have a Cloud Up 1, Naturehike Cloud Up 1. And that was a really good value tent. I thought quite exceptional space for a single person tent. However, I wanted to try the 2-person tent to see how that compared. So I sold the Cloud Up 1. Now the Cloud Up 2, if it's anything like the Cloud Up 1, it will be quite a roomy 2-person tent. But until we get it pitched, until we use it, we don't know. So I rate Naturehike quite highly for a Chinese tent, openly Chinese tent. Most tents I think are made in China anyway, but I do like these Naturehike. And with this one, I've managed to get it in a green, like a foresty green, which for the wild camping would prove a little bit better than the Cloud Up 1 that I had, which was in that whitish silvery white colour. Nice looking, but not exactly blending in with the wild camping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pitch the tent. I'm going to just film me pitching it. So there'll be 3 parts to this. I'll pitch the tent. I'll then give you the technical details of the actual tent, but it's the same as the Cloud Up 1. And then thirdly, once I've slept in it, once I've actually lived in it for a night or two, I'll give you my view of the tent from a practical usability point of view. Don't expect it to be any different to the Cloud Up 1, which I rated quite highly. So I think we'll just get on with it now, but it'll just be filming so you can see the thing going up, and then stage 2 I'll talk you through the technical bits and what I've found in erect. Grey sort of white colour, which is lovely looking tent, and it was a really good tent, rated it very highly, very roomy for a single person tent. However, I wanted the 2-person version, and also it is an upgrade. I bought this last year actually in 2020 before COVID lockdown, but it was an upgrade in 2020. The forest green was a new colour, I think largely for the European market, certainly UK. And there was a couple of slight changes to design, very similar to the Cloud Up 1. So if you've seen that video, it's virtually the same. However, there are some little changes which I'll just show you and touch on. I'm very pleased with it. Slept in it last night, no issues. It feels a very robust tent. And just to give you a little bit of a little bit of an overlay of the details, the fly is a silicon coated 20D nylon with a 4000 millimeter waterproof index on it, and the floor, the actual bathtub flooring of the inner tent is the same. So you've got that 4000 millimeter on both the fly and the floor, and it has a bathtub upturn, which I'll show again. You've probably seen, well, you will have seen the video, not probably, you will have seen the video of me erecting it, so you'll have sort of seen it from that point of view. The poles are same as the Cloud Up one, 7001 aluminium. The mesh is B3 breathable mesh, and the weight of the overall weight, pack weight, is 1.7 kilogram, and the pack size is something like 43 centimeters by 20 centimeters by 12. Very compact for packing, smaller than my MSR Elixir 2. However, the MSR Elixir 2, I think, has a bigger interior and certainly more headroom in the overall length of the tent. This one lowers at one end. It's not too bad though, but it's just a complete different style and design of tent, and it's smaller pack and it's lighter weight. It's substantially lighter if you're backpacking than the Elixir 2. So I think we'll just get down and have a look at it, and I'll just show you some of the good points, and I can't really see any bad points as such, but I'll just show you something in the tent that I think makes it a 2 to 3 season and not a 4 season tent. Anyway guys, let's have a look inside. Okay, so before we look inside, I'll just give you a little spin round the tent as best we can see it with the dappled light. That's maybe better, isn't it? So you can see the shape of the tent, and it follows the same shape as the Cloud Up 1. And it's based on a one pole system. On this one it has a double pole at either end, whereas the older version and the Cloud Up 1 has a single pole. Now you can see it here at the back of the tent, and effectively this is your double pole here. Actually, you can see it better here. So you have the backbone coming down here. It's all one pole, and then you have a double section at the back. Now that is an improvement on the Cloud Up 1, because that gives it more stability in higher winds. The Cloud Up 1 was fine, I didn't have an issue. I was out in some really stormy weather and it was blowing about a little bit at the back end, but it didn't cause any problems. However, on this version they've made it much more stable by having these two poles coming down at the back as well as the front. Whilst we're here, you can see there's a mesh opening here, which works well. In fact, it was a bit breezy last night, so I shut this, and it did it. You know, it actually did work. By shutting it, it did actually improve things a little bit. So last night I had that shut, but it's a calmer night tonight, so I'm going to have that open tonight. Well, I had it open to start with last night, but these things are always a pig when you're trying to do it one-handed. Let's see if I can do that. I can't. I'm going to have to admit defeat, aren't I? So that's back there, and you can see the vent from the different angle. Part of the reason this is not a 4-season tent is that if you look down the side, the fly sits about in the middle, about 6 inches above the ground. Now you can get an option that has like a skirt, so for more sort of winter conditions, but I'm not too bothered about that, because I've bought this really as a travel stroke summer tent for warmer climates, and so it suits my purpose. Just to show you how the actual close-up of how the fly connects is with these little buckles. You'll have seen me erecting the tent, but not close up. So when this fly, well, first of all, let me backtrack. There should be a ground sheet underneath that, Unfortunately I forgot it and left it at home. Works well without it, you don't need it, but normally you'd put the ground sheet down. All 4 poles would then click into a ground sheet which has a similar fixing as that, and then the poles are standing ready for you to put the inner tent to the poles. And they have some really good fixings here, and if I can just show you this. So these are new in that they're designed with a hook facing opposite ways, and it's a good single action twist, and that's connected. So single action twist, connected. Very, very good. So once the inner tent is connected to the ground sheet and the poles, you literally throw the fly sheet over, and then there's a buckle, and it's quite, it's typical, it's just a hard wearing buckle, and it's adjustable, and you just literally push that buckle in. So the buckle pushes in, and then obviously you tension up once you've got the whole thing set up, but I'll just retension that slightly, so you use that little tab there to tension it. So it's very, very simple to fit. There's a little guide rope, a guideline at the back here to pull the tent away from the inner, and if I can just show you, that's the inner, and that's how far it pulls it off. So that works really well. So as we come to the side, and both sides are exactly the same, you have a tensioning of the fly at the bottom, which does the job of pulling the fly away from the inner tent. And you might have seen on the video, but there is a strap just here, just there, that connects from the inner to the fly, and that strap is designed to pull the inside of the tent outwards without actually touching the fly, to maximise the space you've got. The additional thing that Naturehike have done with this model is they've added guy lines midway up the side walls of the tent, and I think they've done that because the tents in high wind did get buffeted about a bit, and they would literally move left and right. I've had that experience with the Cloud Up 1, and other people have had the same experience, but remarkably they don't seem to collapse. They just move around. They move around a lot. So to fix that, they've put these extra guy lines in. And last night it was windy. I came back this afternoon from a bike ride, and it was blustery. And that tent is being held well in place with those guidelines. There is extra attachment points for putting extra guy lines out, so and you have those in the pack, so you can put another guy line from here to hold it back further, just to give it extra strength. I haven't bothered, and it hasn't affected it in the slightly blustery conditions I've had, but only slightly blustery. I think I'll probably attach those guy lines, and then if we get to a point where it's very windy, it will make a big difference just in holding the tent. So each 4 corner has those buckles that you can see. The pegs are quite decent quality aluminium, as you can see here. They're those sort of funny shaped ones that really dig into the ground. So that's your pegs. And on the front of the tent you have 2 more attachment points either side. So that you can put more guy lines out. So I've only put 2 extra guy lines on, and there's another 3 that could go on. In the conditions I've got here, I don't really need those extra guy lines, but you do have them in the pack. They come with the actual tent. So I think once you've got all those guy lines on, this will be quite a much different tent to the ones that don't have as many guy lines on it. So that's the outside. You can see the door slightly offset to the right as I face it, and that's exactly the same as the Cloud Up one. The zips are very, very easy. There's some Velcro going up the various points going up the fly, but it is a one-handed operation. As you can see here, where you got the Velcro, your finger just pushes the Velcro back. So so that's your fly, which then can fasten back, and you can see there that the fly fastens back in the middle here. So that's neatly out of the way. It's not a big vestibule, but it's big enough for a small tent. And you've got to remember, it's a small pack size, this tent, and lightweight at 1.7 kilogram. For the size of tent, it's pretty good. So storage wise, I mean, in here I've just actually got some cooking stuff, bits of food, which I've just temporarily put in there until I finish this video, and then I'm going to eat, and a water bottle. At night I actually keep my boots in that space, so motorcycle boots just go there. Most other things will go in the tent, but I'll leave, if I swing round the other side, I'll maybe leave the likes of the stove and these pots out because they've got lids on, so I'll leave those sort of things out. But it's everybody to their own, and every camp could be different. So the inner tent has a mesh door, and as you can see, the zips at the bottom here, so they're easy to actually operate one-handed. And to be honest with you, I found it with the actual Cloud Up one, the zips seem to hold up pretty well, but you know, the tents are made at a price point. So I've just fastened the mesh door to the inner tent back, as you can see there, and that allows us to look into the tent to see what we've got. And I've got a fairly big sleeping mat, which is a Trekology one. Unfortunately, it was going down last night, and I think I overinflated and it popped, so I think it's my fault entirely. But it's a very good mat, but as I say, it's failed me last night, but due to my misbehaviour with pumping it up. You can see though, it's a big mat, and I've got my really large sleeping bag because the temperatures are still a bit cool at this time of year. We're in April, but you can still get frost. Last night there wasn't frost, didn't freeze, but the temperature had gone down quite considerably. And so that sleeping bag is overhanging the mat. You can see the top end there, it's overhanging. If I just push that back, so there you are. That shows more of the actual space you've got. As you can see, you could get 2 mats in, quite easily get 2 big mats, 2 big sleeping bags in, but I guess there wouldn't be a lot of room other than the mats, whereas the MSR Elixir 2, I think you get 2 mats in that, and you've just got slightly more space, just the design of the tent the way it is. But it is a bigger pack size, so and a heavier tent compared to this. So you pay your money and you take your choice, don't you? For my purposes, it'll only ever be a one-person tent. So as a one-person tent, you can see that there's quite considerable space there to put your motorcycle gear or to do whatever you want, really. Having said that, from a comfort point of view, I have the mat moved over a little bit to about where my finger's pointing now, just so it sits off the inner tent. And because of the shape of the tent, you see how it just at that point there, that's where those little straps pull the ground sheet, pull the bathtub floor and the side walls out towards the fly, but don't touch the fly. Clever little design, and it just gives you that little bit extra space. So that little triangular space there, if you did have 2 mats in here, would be useful to store some little bits and pieces. As it is, it just extends the actual living space. As a solo traveller, as a single person using it, it just gives you that much more room. So for a relatively small, inexpensive 2-person tent, it would be a bit cramped for 2 people, but that's the same for most 2-person tents. But as a solo traveller, this is perfect for solo travelling. I found that the 1-person version of this was fine. It still had space, but just maybe not enough to spend weeks or months living out of it. And the Elixir 2 most certainly would be a tent that would do that. And this would also be a very good option. And I don't know which one I would take when I go travelling. Might be different tents for different trips or different parts of trips. I don't know yet. Really don't know. But I'll keep testing the this and the Elixir 2 over this coming year to hone down what I really want and what I want to take. So as you can see, it's got a yellow lining on the inside, which is actually quite nice. It's bright, so not much more to say about that really. It's just bright and it's nice. If you see the panel at the back, that mesh panel, you can see the top vent and you can see the gap at the bottom. Allows a lot of air through. Now in winter conditions, I'm not so sure I'd be comfortable with that. I think this is definitely not a winter tent. They don't market it as a winter tent, but I would definitely not use this in winter because there would be too much mesh. You can see there, that's a good picture. Far too much mesh, let too much wind and cold in. So I'm not convinced that I would use it in winter. Having said that, with the sleeping bag I've got, which is this, I've done a video of this, the Snugpack Softy Elite 4. Once you've got into that, actually, it doesn't matter how much wind howls through the tent or how cold it is in the tent. With the Alexa back in November, I was camping out in proper sub-zero temperatures up in Galloway Forest, and it was freezing, but the sleeping bag kept me nice and warm whilst I was in the bag. It's just when you obviously get out in the morning or through the night, it's proper freezing. So yeah, I think those mesh panels at the back and the gap around the tent would preclude me from using this in winter. Also, if you sort of look around the top of the tent, it's all mesh. which is great in summer because this tent will give you so much air. If you don't put the fly on in really good conditions, then you'll have massive amounts of air in here. And then you have the bottom section, which is almost like a privacy section, and it will keep out a little bit of draft from the side of the tents, but obviously that panel there at the back is quite low. I don't want to say this is a negative for the tent, to be honest, because it's not designed as a winter tent, and obviously both sides are the same. You have one little hook just there. I'm just hanging that pencil lamp, very good LED light. I find that actually the best thing to hang in both this and the Elixir. Very bright. And the other thing, I'll just swing round. So the other thing is you have a little pocket here to put your wallet, your keys, some money, whatever you want. A little mesh pocket there, which is quite handy. It's by the door, so you can get at it easy enough. And the door itself, as you have seen, if I can close it again. So that's giving you full mesh door. Again, in warm conditions that'll be so beneficial, but in winter conditions less so. The zips have, as you'd expect, little tags on the outside and the inside to be able to operate the, and that's as easy as it is. So simple. So there's not much else to say about the tent really, other than the first night of use I felt very comfortable with it. I've pointed out some downsides if you're going to use it in winter, but they're not negative points, because it's a summer 2 to 3 season tent. It's not a 4 season tent. So, and you can get an option that has a skirt that goes around the bottom, which would make it technically into a 4-person tent. So don't take what I've said about the mesh as being negative. It's a big positive actually for when you go somewhere hot. And the tent, with the improvements that I've shown you on the previous year's model, has made it a much stronger tent in high winds, which is something of a sort of criticism of the original tent, albeit even when it was blowing around, like moving 2 or 3 foot in that top spine, it wasn't collapsing. So but this is a much improved version, and I really like it. It's as good as I was expecting, and I had high expectations of it because I'd had the 1-person version and I knew the changes that had been made. Now, having got it up, slept in it, very happy with it, and it'll be a contender for me when I start travelling. So I hope that's been useful to you. If there's anything at all, just message me, because you might have some questions which I may answer or may not be able to answer, but other people might be able to answer. But if you're looking for a relatively cheap, lightweight, roomy tent for 1 person, that's a really good option to get. And the forest green, is a huge improvement if you want to do some wild camping, because it just takes away the brightness of the sort of grey white colour, which I really like. I love that whitey grey colour, but for the sort of camping I'm doing, forest green is far better. Hope you enjoyed that, guys.